नहमदु व नसल्ली अला रसूलिहिल करीम अम्मा बाद फ़अऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम. The speech which I am going to do today is about the real motives behind Nizam-e Jamaat Ahmadiyya, peaceful slavery and mental imprisonment for Ahmadies. My dear friends, Second World War left Western countries with poverty, malnutrition and diseases. At this time, European countries reinforced their system for the betterment and welfare of their nations. The motives behind the good system which was created were to create a healthy, educated and disease-free society, to create healthy minds and bodies. Today, we find an ordinary man enjoying the standard of living and comfort more than the biblical kings in the West. Air conditions in hot weather, central heating in cold, convenient traveling and free and easy access to healthcare system is available for everybody living in West, especially in Europe. Excellent and free childcare, immunization and vaccination for disease prevention, free supply of milk for newborn children, free schooling and support for children in special needs, tax credits for working families with children, housing benefits and job seekers allowances for those on low incomes or unemployment or unemployed. Similarly, disability benefits for those unable to work. A magnificent system to look after vulnerable people and elderly people living alone. The whole system is based on symbiotic relationship where rich pays taxes and the poorer maintain a basic acceptable standard of living. In spite of such a wonderful system, the system fully supports individual and collective freedom of speech and expressions. Every citizen, everyone can practice his religion and express his political or religious thoughts or viewpoints. Here we must acknowledge that this European welfare system adopted by European nations, in fact the first founded by Hazrat Umar Raziyallahu Ta'ala anhu. Hazrat Umar was the founder of the child benefits, pensions and disability benefits. Hazrat Umar was the first who created a welfare state and the system of social justice and care for the humanity. Hazrat Umar established the courts of justice and appointed judges to provide justice during his reign between 634 to 644 CE. My dear friends, today, due to the blessing of this nizam or system, we see average age has gone up to mid-80s in West. Infections like plague, malaria, typhoid, yellow fever has eradicated completely from the societies. The infant and maternal mortality rate is just negligible. The literacy rate is very high. Universities are producing worldly renowned scholars. Justice is cheap, accessible and for everyone. The new advancements in systems carried out all the time to fulfill the need according to the changing time and people. Due to the system, the people are happy and in good shape, both physically and mentally. But only flaw in their system was it never addressed their spiritual well-being. Therefore, we strongly observe significant spiritual and religious decline despite of their good mental, physical and economical uprising. I may not be wrong to say that the purpose of a European welfare system created by the most intelligent people was not only to look after educational, moral, emotional and physical well-being, but also to diminish the spiritual and religious capabilities and tendencies with time. Nevertheless, It was the system created and placed which progressively changed the shape of the nations in Western countries for the betterment and achieved the desirable and measurable outcomes. Let's come and analyze the another system, which is the prime subject of my discussion today here, which has existed for more than 9 decades in the world. The system is called Nizam-e Jamaat Ahmadiyya, and this was created by so-called divinely guided Khalifa, Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmed. Just for the sake of discussion, we assume that the Nizam-e Jamaat Ahmadiyya, the network or system to work in Ahmadiyya Jamaat, Qadiani Jamaat, is the soul of real Islam, has been told, has been declared, which is Ahmadiyyat. This is a divine Nizam, as said, and created by divinely appointed Khalifa, and no other Nizam can be superior or applicable in Ahmadiyya community. The complete obedience is mandatory, and the Nizam has a full authority to rule over the lives of every member. In contrast to the Western Nizam, this Nizam is a pure spiritual, designed to nurture Ahmadis in the most purest Islamic ways. It is not a worldly Nizam. It is not a worldly Nizam as emphasized by each Khalifa of the time. Every member of the Jamaat is under supervision and vigorous monitoring of this virtuous Nizam from cradle to grave. Let's analyze what did Ahmadis achieve, or what blessings Ahmadis are enjoying today as a spiritual community after spending almost 90 to 100 years under establishment of this so-called Islamic divine system and its impact in the lives of Ahmadis. Before exploring the spiritual and religious outcomes, let's examine how this Nizam operates and impact on the lives of Ahmadis. My dear friends, once a child born in Ahmadiyya community, it is mandatory to enroll this child in Tajneed census. When the child becomes 7 years old, it becomes mandatory for a child to be the member of Itfalul Ahmadiyya, the auxiliary organization of Nizam, covering the children between the age of 7 to 15. The child starts paying his taxes on a regular basis, in spite of the fact that he has no earnings. He starts participating in activities in local or central level. The child is under constant monitoring and scrutiny of a designated office bearer. He is given the syllabus and has to go through different competitions. His life after school is mostly under a responsible office bearer. The office bearer teaches the child 2 most important points, the most pivotal points. 1, the Khalifa is appointed by God, and hence he is an unquestionable authority. 2nd, every office bearer is appointed by Khalifa and hence representing him. Therefore, every member must show total obedience towards the office bearer called Ohdedar. From a very small age, the child is asked to take pledge that he will ready to sacrifice his wealth, life, time, and dignity for the cause of his religion. He is fully thrown into intense military regime. He is looked after by a variety of office bearers who are the members of higher cabinets. After spending 8 years in Itfalul Ahmadiyya group, now the boy moves into another group. It's called Khudamul Ahmadiyya. The word Itfal means children, and Khudam means the one who serves. So therefore the now Nizam, the system, has more expectation from the Ahmadiyya youth to serve unconditional. Nevertheless, the nature of training remains the same. There are more liabilities in terms of taxes or chandajat. This group covers the youth age from 15 to 40. Once the individual comes to the age of 40, he moves into the final destined group, which is called Ansarullah, meaning the helper of God. Once the individual becomes the member of Ansar group, He is expected to become more humble, more pious, with fear of God. He remains the member of this group until he died. He member more vigorously participates in the community and pays his taxes on time. At this stage, he is under the lot of pressure to be musi. That means that to sign an agreement or contract to give 10% of his wealth to the Jamaat after his death. Similarly, the feminine side is also divided into two auxiliary organizations, Nasratul Ahmadiyya for the young girls up to the age of 15 and Lajna from age 15 to onwards. These majorly auxiliary organizations further divided or subdivided into sub-offices and a variety of ranks and cabinets. The entire network of the different cabinets, office bearers, just resemble like a large pyramid. As this pyramid goes higher and higher, gets more concentrated and finally drain into a cabinet of the supreme leader. Every member of the community is fully engaged and building block of this pyramid of office bearers. Not even a single person is randomly wandering around in this community. Every member is a building block and fully engaged, and no one is anonymous. The question arises here, what outcomes or fruits Ahmadis are enjoying today after nearly 100 years of total obedience or a peaceful slavery? One must expect to see religious scholars of world level, teachers of a world level, Sufis, and pious, God-fearing people scattered all over the community. In the form of spiritual outcomes, one must wish to see saints like Abdul Qadir Jilani, Shams Tabrizi, Maulana Rumi, Saadi Shirazi, Mujaddid Al-Afsani, Mainuddin Chishti, Baba Bulle Shah, etc., sitting in the Ahmadiyya Jamaat place to place, singing rhymes and praising the Lord. But instant, what we see today in Ahmadiyya community, a progressive decline in moral, religious, and spiritual and educational values. The successive generations not only decline in spirituality, taqwa, but also exhale in dishonesty. The scholars like Maulana Rumi or Sheikh Saadi is far from this nizam. Even all those pious people produced by the founder of Ahmadiyya Jamaat, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadani alayhi salam, gradually forced to leave the community or left the community. For example, Allama Sir Muhammad Iqbal, Maulana Abdur Rahman Misri, etc., or even the children of Hazrat Hakim Maulana Nuruddin, Raziyallahu Ta'ala anhu, as they were considered a threat for this nizam. As a matter of fact, the real reason behind creating this Gestapo-style nizam was not to achieve the religious or spiritual empowerment among Ahmadis, but rather to control the mind, body, and soul of each and every member by creating a spying network. Every member is held bondage in the chains of peaceful slavery. By creating this system, so-called Islamic divine system, the fundamental motives behind was to control the free speech, free and unrestricted communication, unrestricted communication with non-members, in particular the non-Ahmadis Muslims. To continuously exert a psychological pressure on the members and demand purification by paying their taxes, chandajat, and encourage them to get involved in more and more chanda tahrikat. The time has come now when the people who were put on these useless military exercises for decades without any outcomes whatsoever are on the verge of revolt. This nizam made simple truth seekers people captive in the name of real Islam. They trained them from generation to generation how to obey the command without raising eyebrows. This nizam taught simple Ahmadis the rule of slavery and they fix up boundaries for them. They control the information given to them and control their social communication. They barricaded them from all those who showed the signs of awakening. These masters divided people into groups so they can monitor them more carefully and more closely. They used their wives to spy over husbands, brothers over brothers, and elders over youngers to report if any signs of rebel for the sake of real Islam. This Gestapo Nizam kept them busy fighting for small, non-worthy causes by creating a pseudo-competitions. This Nizam fixed the boundaries for their thoughts. They are not allowed to think independently even when in isolation. Their self-respect and dignity thrown away, and those who raise any question are disgraced all over the world by naming and socially boycotted. The whole generation after generation has transformed into trained animals that can feed, earn, and pay taxes, but left with no cognitive power to think. They can only think. They can only think what they've been trained to think. That is, the Khalifa is appointed by God. Nizam is the ultimate authority. The decision is unchallengeable and showful submission to Nizam. The Khalifa is protecting the Nizam, and the Nizam is there to make sure the members are paying full submission to Khilafat. If you are expelled, beg until granted pardon. Your family members will be excommunicated, and you will leave with no rights to call yourself Ahmadi. Your funeral and wedding will no longer be served, neither any member will be allowed to share any happiness or sorrow with you. My dear friend, fortunately the Ahmadies have now started thinking. With the efforts and with the presence of Hazrat Abdul Ghaffar Jamba Sahib, they are now confronting and raising their voices against unjust and cruelty. To education and awareness created by Hazur Ayyadahullah Ta'ala bin Aziz has penetrated inside the cult and has become a great challenge for Nizam leaders. Al-Ghulam.com is exposing their Gestapo-style Nizam and stripping off their decades of secrets. This Nizam is crumbling and warning its members to close their accounts on Facebook, not to listen people on the YouTube. The Ahmadis are revolting against their own masters now. This Nizam is scared of revolt as more and more Ahmadis are now behaving differently. There are discussions among Ahmadis about this cruel, inhuman, highly non-Islamic policies. There are question marks about the Khilafat and the Electoral College. People are wary of the corruption and the conduct of the Jamaat. The mental imprisonment and peaceful slavery. These are the true motives behind the creation of this Nizam, and they are very much successful. My dear friend, Hazrat Masih Maud saw a dream in 1893, which is written in Tazkara, page number 285. Hazur al-Islam says, a long time ago, I saw a dream that I was riding a horse and went towards my garden, all alone. In front of me appeared an army bent upon destroying my garden. I felt no fear of them and was certain in my own mind that, though alone, I was more than adequate for them. They entered the garden, and I entered after them. And when I arrived inside, I saw that they were all lying dead, when their hands and heads and feet all cut off, and their skin stripped off. Observing this spectacle of divine power, I was overcome and wept, thinking, who else would have the power to do all this? By this army, Hazur al-Islam explaining, by this army was meant the people who desired to mislead the members of my movement and to wean them away from their allegiance and to distort their belief and cut off the trees of garden, which means my movement. God demonstrates His power and defeat their purpose and render all their efforts vain. By their heads being cut off is meant that their pride will be broken and their arrogance and disdain will be trampled under the foot. A person's hand is a weapon with which he fights the enemy. The cutting of their hands meant that they would be deprived of all means of fighting. A person can run away after a defeat with the help of this feet. A person can run away after a defeat with the help of his feet. Their feet being cut off meant that they would have no means of escape left. By the stripping of the skin was meant that their secret will be disclosed and all their faults and defects will be exposed. Alhamdulillah, this is what alghulam.com is doing. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.